Hey there, Mama. Welcome back. This is Emily McDermott, and today I have a bonus episode. It's Coffee and Tea with M&E, which I've been doing with my friend Michelle Byrd now. This is our 12th episode, and today's episode is all about spring refresh. We're talking about refreshing our routines, refreshing our home, our schedules, our digital lives, all of these things. And I really hope you enjoy this conversation. I'm having spring break this week with my kiddos, definitely thinking about refreshing routines around here, especially with them home. So hope that you enjoyed this conversation, and I will be back on Thursday with the regularly scheduled episode. So go ahead and enjoy this 12th episode of Coffee and Tea with M&E.
Hey friends, welcome back. This is another episode of Coffee and Tea with M&E. We have Emily here, and we're going to talk about all kinds of fun things and spring cleaning and all this stuff. So, hey, Emily.
Hey, happy to be here. We had kind of a fun week where Wednesday was 75 degrees and then Thursday it snowed. So I know I'm not the only one on the East Coast that was just looking out their window like, huh? So, good thing this year I did not declutter the snow boots and the winter clothes too early because I need to wait every year until at least because it's like the March Madness concept. Like, what is going on? Yes, happy to be talking to you when the snow is melting, and it's hopefully we will not see any more snow until whatever. December.
It's so crazy that it has that big of a fluctuation that you're like, it's a lovely day. Let's all go outside. And then, oh no, it's snowing. Everybody, we need coats and boots and all the things.
Yeah. And then the boys, of course, want to wear shorts no matter what the weather. So that's a whole other conversation. Luckily, we found the winter coats and they have spring break coming up before Easter. And so definitely, like you said, kind of in that spring state of mind and that refresh and kind of like what the new season is looking like. I think we're all sort of ready for that at this point.
Yeah, I feel like you go through, the season, you go through fall and then Christmas and like it's Thanksgiving and Christmas and you're all working up to that. And then you have all this New Year's energy of like new stuff. And then kind of, February kind of like floats down like, okay, now we're all kind of coming back to normal. And then you start like, okay, what do we need to kind of clean out? And you have, as the season changes, as the clock changes, you have more daylight. It's kind of like fresh air and like spring cleaning.
Yeah. And I will be honest, anything we talk about today with spring cleaning, I might need to have you lead because I I don't like it. I mean, my only thing I have to say on it, the topic at all, is to not download a spring cleaning list with 500 things and then think you have to do it. So everyone has a permission slip that if it's springtime, you don't want to do anything different than your normal, like week in, week out cleaning. I am right there with you. Like I might do a couple extra things just because we might be moving and getting our house on the market and that kind of thing. But I find there's a lot of pressure actually with the spring cleaning thing because for me, I don't like cleaning. And so I don't want more cleaning. So I just kind of ignore it. But I know I'm kind of a special case. So if you love spring cleaning and love doing extra cleaning, then good for you. I'm just saying don't feel the pressure that you have to like wash the curtains or any of the kind of like extra things you may not do on a regular basis.
Love that. Yeah, you're right. It can get a little like everybody's spring cleaning. You need to do it too. Whereas you need to do this laundry list of 100 extra things. And you're like, when would I have time to do those things? So I like to use it just as a fresh, almost like a New Year's kind of new energy, kind of fresh, like, okay, let's look at some things a little differently. And what are a couple things that maybe need some help that we have neglected or not wanted to touch or over the winter have been like, we're hibernating. I don't want to deal with that right now. Like the outside, we have not done anything to our backyard or like taken cushions out or, potted plants that have died. I haven't not gone outside. So like the backyard is like the same as since it was most of the winter. But the idea of like, oh, it's sunny and like we could go sit outside and our fire pit is no longer working. We need to get that fixed. And like, okay, let's take on a few of these things that we have neglected versus let's do a whole laundry list of new things.
Yeah, I agree. You want like your space, especially outdoor space, to be functional and to be like supportive of what you want to do. And it just was a fun irony because my stuff was like covered in snow yesterday. Like, well, I guess we're gonna not be doing spring cleaning this particular weekend on the outside. But yeah, I do like that. I've never been much of a gardener, but I like the idea of like, oh, the spring and like, flowers coming and kind of like, cleaning things up a bit to sort of welcome and usher in that sort of season. But yeah, I think we might be focusing this week, maybe next week on the inside of the house and then move to the outside.
Yeah. I like just like maybe there's one project in each room you do 1 week, don't think you have to do something every day, but like maybe you walk into a room and you're like, well, like for us, it's underneath one of our kitchen sinks. Well, actually, both kitchen sinks, they need to be like cleaned out. One has buckets and each bucket is filled with like bags, like either paper bags or, disposable bags or whatever, but they're overflowing. And so at some point I need to like pull everything out and go through it and put it back. So it's that kind of thing that you pick like one thing in a room that might be bugging you and like work on.
Yeah, I like that approach, just kind of like coming into a room. Okay, what's the thing that's stressing me out the most, or like the thing I would want to do in this room, but something is hindering me, physically from being able to do that. Like having this functionality first approach is how I approach like my own home, but also with clients, kind of like, okay, how do we want this space to feel and function and flow? And like, what do you want to do here? And what needs kind of like you said, like a review, a refresh, because we don't always do those recurring things like cleaning out the bag of bags. And then we're like, wait, I have like 100 reusable shopping bags. I probably don't need 100, So I do like that approach. And I think that the spring is a great time to, like you said, not in a really pressure filled way, but start actually just being like, okay, I think I'm going to work on this with this week and then pick another project, for the next week.
Yeah. And definitely, I like to always do those decluttering projects when I'm already doing something else. So I pair it with like, we're all in the kitchen watching TV because it is next to our living room. And so maybe we're watching March Madness and the basketball games. And like, I can kind of pay attention to the basketball games, especially if I know who's playing, who do I want. Like some are more important than others. And then you can do decluttering while you're still there, or bring a project over and hang out with the family and do that, or clean out a drawer while your kids are doing homework, or you're in that same space that you need to be. So don't put pressure on yourself. Like you have to, make extra time because sometimes it just doesn't work. So maybe try to pair it with something you're already doing in that space.
I love that because one of the things my community tells me all the time, I don't have the time. I don't have the time. And so if you're pairing it with being in that space already, or that you can be with your kids, but you don't have to be like, on top of them, like making sure that they're not going to fall or whatever. I'm thinking I was helping a client with the garage the other day. And, you could have your kids maybe playing in the driveway or something. And then like, okay, I'm going to just take a look at one shelf in the garage and just kind of take that down and see what's in there. This client, she found a box that her mom had given her of toys that she had played with in like the 80s. Like there was like My Little Pony and like Barbie clothes and all this other stuff. She's like, I had no idea that this was here. So it's amazing what you can uncover, even if you're just doing like one shelf at a time, and then be able to be like, oh, I noticed the kids, they never put all of the basketballs and all the balls like back. Like, why is that? Oh, it's because this thing filled with balls and half of them are like deflated and half of them have, like leaks in them or whatever. It's completely full. So let's go through and the kids can help. We'll be like, okay, which ones of these balls like actually work and which ones are bouncy and which ones aren't bouncy. And you can kind of like include them in that as they're playing instead of like, I have to go do the garage today, and it's like this big chore. It can just be part of your everyday life, because unless it's part of your everyday life, it's probably not going to happen.
So, and laughing because we have a ball bucket too that like overflows. And then it's like, why can't these stay in here? And why do we have like 20,000 balls, but like you play with 3? Why is this? So then I have them come help. Like, what's wrong with these? Put the ones in that you want to keep, and we're going to give a bunch out. And then they're like, well, this one doesn't work, and this one's broken, and we don't like this one. So great, let's get rid of them. Like, why are they still in here?
Yeah. Well, the balls are a great example because it's not so much like emotional, sentimental attachment. It's like, does it work or not? You can pretty much, make your decision based upon that. So it's a little bit of an easier decluttering project that you can involve your kids in.
Yeah. And then we have buckets of their toys in the garage. And so sometimes I'm like, are you all done with these? Are you ready to get rid of whatever it is? We have like, the cars that you use, little battery controlled cars or whatever. Like, do you want to still play with them, or should we get rid of them? Like that kind of question.
Yeah. And it's something that, depending on the age of the kids, because or just the kid themselves, like if you're noticing that they're like, oh yeah, well, my son says, oh, I want to play with that later. And then I have a friend and she's like, I make my kid play with it like right then. It's like, I haven't seen you touch this in like 6 months or something. Like, let's get it out and play with it. And then they're like, oh, that's not very fun. Okay, great. Well, then let's go ahead and get rid of it, But my youngest is always like, well, I just don't want to play with it right now. And I'm like, you always say that. So yeah, sometimes you have to kind of call them out on that and then kind of and if you're willing, if you're like, well, I'm willing to try it with you or to play it with you or like show me how it works or whatever, then you're showing that interest in what they're doing. So it might be more likely instead of they're just like, oh, I just don't want to do that right now. Because most of clutter is unmade decisions or decisions that we procrastinated on because we're like, oh, I'll figure that out later. I'll deal with that later. And then all the laters become clutter. So,
right. So true. Or well, I don't know if I'm going to like it. So I guess I'll keep it till later. I don't want to play with it now, but I might want to play with it later.
Yeah. The mights and the some days and all that. I mean, we do that too with our own stuff for sure. Like, oh, I might wear that someday, or we kind of come up with these aspirational realities in our heads. I was just doing an episode where I was talking about like the 10 things I do to keep my home clutter free. And one is that I shop for what I need or things that are being replaced. And I don't go into Costco and be like, we've never gone camping, but maybe someday we could be a camping family. And I'm going to just get this camping gear because it's on sale. And meanwhile, we've never gone camping before, right? So we're going to go with friends and borrow their stuff. If for some reason we go and it's like, oh, we all really like this, we want to invest in it, fine. But it's like, I'm not just going to buy something based upon this aspirational promise that it's going to like make our lives better because that's just marketing. Like they're going to make you think everything is going to make your life better, but we know that that's not true.
Yeah, I love that idea of like, just borrow it, ask a friend. Somebody's got to have whatever it is you need. So ask somebody if you can borrow it. If you really love it, then go ahead and get it and have your family do this new fun hobby. But like, figure out if you like it first before. And also some things are pretty big. Like if, you're like, oh, I love to kayak. We're going to be a kayaking family. Like, where do you store that?
Yeah, the sporting equipment and the kind of hobby equipment, that's like a really big, and speaking of the garage, like that's where a lot of that stuff like goes to die because you're like, oh, I thought that we were going to do this and we don't really. But I think just because of Amazon and all of the like online shopping being so prevalent is that we're like, well, I just get it because it's easy to get it. And then we're not really thinking through, maybe I could borrow it instead and then be able to see if I really need it or if I'm even going to use it more than once. Like if it's something for like a one-off, like I gave an example. I know that you were just at a Momco meeting and I had a Momco meeting years back where they needed a chocolate fountain and we were going to just like go on Amazon and get a chocolate fountain. And I'm like, hold up, let's think about the number of times we're going to use a chocolate fountain in our lives here. And I went on my local Buy Nothing group, asked if anyone had a chocolate fountain and someone did. So we had it for the one meeting where we were doing like chocolate fondue or whatever. And then we just gave it back. But like our minds nowadays, we don't think about that. We just go on Amazon. Okay, it's $30. Okay, I ordered it. It's coming tomorrow. Instead of like, could I borrow this so it doesn't end up becoming clutter in my home? And I think if we just took an extra couple seconds to pause, think about that, and look at our resources, like you have an amazing community where you probably could just text your neighbors, your local Buy Nothing group, your like Momco group, like fellow moms probably like have stuff. And people love to help that way. They love to be able to let you borrow something and be like, oh, I don't even use this that much, but at least it's going to get some use, by someone else borrowing it. So just remember, borrowing is not for just a cup of sugar. It's about other things too, right? Like chocolate fountains or whatever.
Yeah, I love that idea. And it's so true. Our world is so consumer focused and purchase, purchase, purchase. And now it's so easy to get stuff into our house, but we often don't have a way to get stuff out. So then it gets stuck. We purchase things because it's so easy and just ends up on our doorstep. And then we're like, well, we don't really like this, but I don't really have time to, send it back, or I missed the window, or I don't even know where it went, or the labeling, or maybe you do end up using it, but not enough. So there's so much more that we just consume versus thinking, do I need that chocolate?
Most likely the answer is no.
Most likely no. So in talking about kind of our spring refresh and maybe decluttering a little, what kind of things with our family, we were kind of thinking through things with our family of how to declutter our schedule or things that we need to declutter in regards to our family. Do you have some thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I'm finished reading a book for a person. She's actually in Australia, but she has a forthcoming book, and it's about like the mental load and easing the mental load from just what she calls like the household manager, which is normally the mom, not always, but normally is the mom. And she made the suggestion, and I think you do this already, of having like a family email address. So anything from like the school or like the sports teams or whatever would go to this family email. And then you could have your family calendar kind of tied to that email address. I mean, we have a pretty good system with having our family Google Calendar and then having our like personal work ones so that my husband and I can kind of see what's going on. But I really liked that idea because it takes the onus off of one person. Like, as long as it's very clear as to like who has what responsibility for planning things, following up, doing the thing or whatever, it's great to be able to take the onus off the person. So if like I'm sick or like I miss the email from the school, then I know like, oh, it's in the family email. And if I'm sick, then my husband takes care of it instead of it just getting lost or appointments getting missed or that kind of thing. So that kind of made me think that maybe having a family email that my husband and I share might be a good idea for those types of things going forward. So that's one of the it's kind of schedule and digital combined, I guess.
Right. Yeah, so the school sends out emails and we both get them, my husband and I. So we get the same email. And then oftentimes we just send it on the family text. So we have a group chat and then we send it. Did you take care of the form we need to turn in for Mexico? Yes, but we need to get this other form notarized. Did you notice this? Oh, we need to get this one notarized. Okay. So it's communicating that way. So we kind of have like a running list of like who's taking care of it. And then the interesting thing is our kids also get the email. So oftentimes they will take responsibility and fill out things, especially our oldest, who is super uber responsible. She makes spreadsheets and she's usually already taking care of whatever forms we need. But I have to say the boys are getting much better of like we're not as on top of it sometimes. And I think it takes all five of us really to like not let anything fall through the cracks. Because oftentimes it'll be an email or something and it'll have four different parts of it or different things, or like they wanted to go to a play and the boys didn't care about going to the play, but Ashley, her friends were in it. So she's like, hey, I do want to go to this play. Oh, okay. Well, thanks for letting us know. Do you want to be in charge of getting the tickets or do you want us to get the tickets? Day, do you want to go? And then we all communicate about that. So it's a moving progress. I don't know if if we're doing it the right way yet, but we're trying to give them more responsibility. And it does help to have, as I said, all five of us looking at it, because then there's less stuff that falls through the cracks. And I know if I'm sick, Steven still gets the emails if, they are still looking at it.
Yeah. And one of the things I had thought about before, but this book was good, it's called The Fair Share, and it's coming out in April, I think. And that's her name is Chantel Mila, and I guess she's this very popular Instagram home person in Australia. But I thought that the name of the book, The Fair Share, was kind of interesting. And it talks about how for every task, there is like the planning, but then there's also the execution and the follow up. And a lot of times, somebody might be doing one piece, like they're doing the actual doing piece. So my husband might be taking my kids to soccer practice, for example, but perhaps I was the one that was like getting the emails, doing the registration, like having all the follow up, knowing if signing up for snacks, getting the snacks. And so if you have two different people doing the planning and the doing the follow up, then sometimes things can get lost with the communication. And so her recommendation is, if possible, to have one person do all of it. So doing the planning and the doing and the follow up, because it brings to light the invisible labor then becomes more visible. And the person that doesn't do normally as many of the household tasks, they're kind of like, oh, like I had no idea like this was involved, or like birthdays for kids' birthdays, like getting the card and getting the gift card or the gift. I just say gift card because that's what I've been doing for all of these kids, is getting them like ice cream gift cards, right? But like having that in mind, signing the waiver for the trampoline park, all of these things that need to happen. And a lot of times it's like my husband might just be taking him to the party, but that isn't the life cycle of the task. So it's really been making me think about, especially with my husband's job and transition and knowing that it can change. Like if you're in a different season, you can totally say, oh, I know I've been responsible for this in the past, but I have a ramp up with work. So I am going to have, let's have you be the one that's doing the planning, the doing, and the follow up for whatever the category is. So I thought it was kind of interesting. And I'm thinking about how to implement that, in our own family.
Yeah, I like that. It definitely shows you more of the whole process, where if you just have a piece of the process, you don't realize the underlining, as you said, work that kind of goes into, it's not just taking the kid to the birthday party. There was a lot that happened before the birthday party of like RSVPing and, finding a gift and finding a card and figure out where it is. And do you need to sign a waiver? All that stuff happened before versus I took him to the birthday party.
Yeah, and sometimes my husband isn't like this, and I'm sure Steve's not like that either. But sometimes it's like, shall I say, the men think they deserve a gold star for doing the one thing, or our culture is like, wow, you took them to go buy shoes and clothes. That's amazing. Whereas if we do it, no one bats an eye. So it's interesting how, again, it's not all relationships and all marriages, but a lot of times the mom, the wife, is like taking on the majority of that invisible labor. And that's where we can start to become resentful because it's invisible and like no one notices. It's like when my kids sit down to dinner, they're just sitting down for the meal. And so when they complain about the meal, they have no clue that it was a new recipe and I had to go buy the food, figure out how I'm going to make it, actually prepare it and make it not too spicy for them. And then think like, okay, I feel pretty good that this is going to be good. And then they're like, yeah, I don't really like it. And I'm like, why are you so mad, Mom? Well, it was all of this planning and forethought and work on the front end. And you just plop your bum down and take a bite and go, So it's something that I want to be able to teach my kids too. Like there's a lot that goes into how our home is run and what is happening. And you have to understand kind of the full picture of it, not just be enjoying the fruits of my labor, right?
Right.
That's a work in progress with my kids.
Yeah, it's like the iceberg effect, right? They just see the tip of the iceberg. They're just sitting down to dinner. They don't see all the work that went into making the shopping for the meal, planning for the meal, making the meal. All that part is under the water that they haven't noticed, but they just sit at the very top. And
Yeah.
so they get angry at the very top. So I think, reminding ourselves to bring them into the process is often helpful with cleaning, with, decluttering, with any kind of process is to remind to, help us remember to like maybe next time then you make the grocery list and where you get to help me make the meal and you get to come to the store with me to help me pick out groceries. So bringing them in, I think helps through that whole thing. Where I find that like most of my clients or most families and stuff is kind of craziness is when they have lots of activities that they're involved with and there's like too many. But I feel like our society, especially in this area, probably in your area too, is very focused on like how many sports you're playing, what are you doing, what are you doing after school, and how many things do you have your kids involved in. And it's almost negative if you're like, no, we're just going home after school. Like we had a full day of school and I had a full day of work and we're just ready to go home and do the things at home and chill. So I think oftentimes a lot of families have lots of strife and stress around all the activities that they're involved with.
Yeah, and I have always felt very strongly about this where I'm like, I know my capacity and I know my kids' capacity, and it's not worth it. Like, I mean, we have pretty much a one activity rule. Most of the time, that is a winter or a spring sport. But I don't understand the point of running around. Like, the kids need downtime. I need downtime. And even last night, there was a school event in the evening, and I was bringing a neighbor in addition to my two boys. And it was fine, but it was like I got back and I didn't want to do anything because it was just so, like draining to have something where I wasn't like expecting that we were going to have something. And yeah, I don't know why it's a keeping up with the Joneses type of thing, but I have just decided I have no interest in keeping up with that. I don't think that my kids are going to like suffer on their college applications because, fourth and second grade, they only did one sport. And even as they get older, it really is like family that should, excuse me, a decision that should be made based upon your family values and not based upon comparison or FOMO or thinking that you are, not giving your kids all the advantages in the world because you don't have them in multiple activities. But I'm sure you kind of feel that pressure more because your kids are older, I'm guessing.
Well, there's that guilt, like, and yes, especially when you are in high school, it's like, and you're looking at college applications and they want you to be involved in 15 different things and also have, other stuff. And also some of the requirements for different groups that they're in at school or they're in like a couple different societies or something. And to be in that shows like, oh, they have leadership and they have to have their grades at a certain level. But also with that, they have to do a certain amount of service hours. So then like that gets tacked on to like, oh, I guess our family is also going to somehow put that into our schedule. So there is those things, but I think it's more important, as you said, to just see instead of feeling guilt or shame or comparing, to just say, what is our capacity? Is this in our capacity? Because I think everybody runs at a different level. We have friends who are never bored. They have their kids in like 15 different things and they have people over all the time. They have parties, they have groups over, and we're over on the other side and we're like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. It's Friday. I don't want to see anybody. Like it's like a different level of how you get energized and just the different speed of your treadmill. And I think it's really important, as you said, like run at whatever pace that's good for you. If your family wants to do 15 sports and that's not a problem and you aren't breaking down and stressed at everybody and it seems to be manageable, great. If your family wants to do one sport, great. Like there's no rule. Don't feel like you need to compare because everybody runs at a different pace.
Yeah, and I think it's a good opportunity to teach kids about boundaries when it comes to their time, and also boundaries around things that protect your values as a family. So for us, although I'm kind of skipping out on it, so that's kind of hilarious. I'm bringing this up. Normally Friday we do pizza movie night, and
Love pizza.
but I am going out with my girlfriends for dinner. Now, sometimes your values are competing, right? You could have a family value of we always do pizza movie night on Friday. So that is like something we carve out that we try to keep, that schedule. However, when I was looking at alternate days, my friends couldn't do the alternate days, and I haven't seen them in a long time. And I have a value of friendship. Like, my adult friendships are also important. So this is something that's happening, once every like 3 months or 6 months or something. So if it's like a one-off, fine. But I want my kids to know we're not doing play dates after school on Friday. We're not going to have a Friday afternoon activity. We are going to have pizza movie night on Friday because that's what we do as a family. And it's a way also for us to get enough rest so that when we have Saturday activities, we're like ready for those. So I think it's okay to tell your kids, no, and this is why. I'm not trying to make your life difficult. I'm not trying to keep you from playing with your friends. I am happy to accommodate your requests to be hanging out with your friends Monday through Thursday. But on Friday, we are doing this as a family. If you don't want to watch a movie, you can be up in your room if you want to, but like, we're watching a movie. You know what I mean? So that's been really helpful, I think, that my kids are starting to understand. So when they are in charge of their own schedules, they can start having some of these like boundaries around how they want to spend their time so that they don't have to say yes to everything and everyone, because you don't want to teach your kids like, oh, we say yes to every activity. We say yes to everything we're asked to do. Like, it's okay sometimes to say no and to protect your rest and your capacity and all of those things.
Amen. I totally agree. Totally agree. And it's funny now that our kids are like older, they don't want to do anything Friday. They like just want to get to Friday and they're done. They like work on whatever homework they need to do over the weekend. They typically do it on Friday to get it done, but they're done. And it is funny. It took me a while to realize that Friday play dates, or especially when they were little and you could plan like their own schedule, I would always think, oh, it's great. Like, it's the end of the week and we'll be all done with all the things we have to do. It'll be great. But Fridays never worked very well. We always had hardly any energy. People would get in fights. Like, it just was not Friday. Take Friday off. Just, it needs to be a day of rest.
Yeah. Well, today, my youngest, their class earned these like points and they were able to do pajama and stuffy day at school. So it's like, he's already in one pair of pajamas. I mean, he'll shower and put on another pair of pajamas, but it's kind of that like relaxed, like easing in after the end of the week. And yeah, because I mean, I think about it, my kids are gone from 8 to 4. Like, that's a full day. And then they have after school stuff sometimes the rest of the week. So understanding your kids' need for downtime, like even if they function really well with a lot of activities, they still need some downtime, even if they won't admit it. So sometimes as the parent, we have to be like, okay, we're carving this out for you, even though it might not be what you would choose for yourself.
Right. And I think that's so important to figure out the rhythm of your family, to figure out like during the week, as you said, if we are packed and we have packed the week full, and sometimes that happens, like you have obligations, school, and, maybe sports, maybe whatever it is, you packed it full, then plan when are we going to, get back around and take some time to rest. So I think that's really a good model. Just what is that speed that you're kind of running at? And as you said, like we don't typically do anything on Saturdays. Saturdays, we kind of try to keep free as well. We try as much as we can not to do things over the weekend. But we just have noticed that like we just need that kind of downtime to rest and recharge and do stuff. So it is funny when there is something over the weekend where we're like, what? This is so busy. And there's like only like one thing we're doing.
It's like, wait a minute, I have to put on like real clothes, like, oh, not just the comfy stuff that we hang out at home in.
That was my middle one last weekend because we went to a play for their school. And he was like, I have to wear pants?
Mom, come on.
His goal is to be in pajama pants like all day Saturday. Like wherever we go, he'll play basketball outside in pajama pants. Like the whole day is pajama pants.
That's hilarious.
Teens, they're so fun. And yeah, they just want to eat and wear cozy sweats. And they're like, that's kind of what they do. So I was thinking of like, okay, we talked a little bit about family and schedule and putting margin in and kind of planning out your week a little, finding out your rhythm. And thinking through kind of decluttering, what are some things that you can do in kind of the digital, more like personal space of decluttering?
Yeah, I have a lot of fun digital things that I do to try to make my life easier. One of the things is I use reminders like all the time. And I may have mentioned this before, but I love it. Like even getting the email, like, oh, it's PJ and Stuffy Day. And knowing that I have to tell my son in the morning, like, don't put on regular clothes, like put on pajamas and pick out what stuffy you want. And you don't want them, if they're excited about that kind of thing, to like go to school in regular clothes and everyone else is in PJs, you know? So like as soon as I get that kind of email, then I'm putting a reminder, you know, on my phone, like 7 a.m., Sean, PJ, and Stuffy Day. And so I use reminders for recurring things like daily. I've probably mentioned this, but, you know, for vitamins and library books and bringing Andrew's viola to school and those types of things. But also for those one-offs, I find that it's just really helpful for me to kind of like prevent that leak between like getting the text or the email, especially from the school, and then it actually like happening and not being completely stressed out about it. So that is one thing. And then I have two other things. Do you want me to pause in between or keep going?
Oh, I was going to say, how do you put reminders? Do you just have your calendar and you
Yeah.
put it at like all day so it shows up at the top? Or do you put it at
So
like 8
I
o'clock or whatever?
think that it's Apple Calendar. I don't know. I do use it's like my Apple kind of pairs with my Google. So I get a little confused. I'm like, what app do I use? But when I do like new within Apple, it'll give an option between an event and reminder. So it's actually through the calendar app as opposed to getting just the reminders, which is great because it's showing you the day and it's showing you like, okay, what time do you know, what time do you want to be reminded and everything. So I do that. So like as a lot of times I'm kind of maybe putting something on the calendar, then I might have like a reminder. Like for example, let's say for a soccer game, I wasn't subscribed to like the sports calendar, but I was like entering it in manually. I would put the game and then, oh, I signed up for snacks for that game. So I would make sure that I put like the reminder when we were leaving, bring snack, you know, so that I remember to do that. So that's kind of how I do it. And I like the fact that I can do it within that same calendar app rather than having to use the reminders app specifically. So yeah, that's one of my favorite things.
Yeah. So I do it. So I have a Google Calendar and I will do it at like, usually I will, yes, put in what time the game
Yeah.
is. So I'll say like somebody's game and the app and in parentheses, like the time it starts. And
Yeah.
then I will start my reminder or whatever time that event is with driving time. So if it,
Okay.
you know, starts at 3 o'clock, I'll set it for 2:30 because I know that like that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's one of my favorite things. This other thing I just discovered is called unattach. So I get like the notification from Google, like your storage is getting full. And I'm like, grr, you know, I get really annoyed, but I don't want to get more storage, even though I know it's pretty cheap, but it's like a personal thing. I'm like, no, I am going to totally like declutter this. So unattach, it's whatever you pay for it, it's very nominal. And I think a certain number of emails are free, but it takes the attachments off of the emails. And so that
Interesting.
way you can just keep the attachments. Like, let's say I have a podcast guest and they've sent me like their bio and they've sent me their headshot and that kind of stuff. Well, a lot of times I would just archive it, like, oh, archive it for my podcast. And then I'm like, oh, things are getting kind of full. So I can get the attachments off of that. And then you have the option whether you want to delete the email afterwards or if you want to keep the email. But I was able to free up a ton of space with my Google Total thing, which is like Photos, Drive, Gmail, by using that unattached. So that's something I recently discovered that I'm a big fan of, so I don't have to buy more storage.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm constantly buying more storage. I have been trying, I'm still not really good at it, but I'm trying to figure out a good way of doing emails. I think emails are the worst. It's a huge time suck. To put it either in folders, but that's kind of a time suck to like put them in each thing. But then I've also noticed that like in my inbox, a lot of things build up and then I don't remember which ones I need to get back to and which ones I don't.
Ooh.
So sometimes I'm flagging them if you have
Yeah.
flags. So I'll flag them different colors or I'll mark the ones I need to get back to as unopened.
Yeah, I have a system that's been working well for me. So instead of doing folders in Gmail, I do a tag. So you can tag it. And it kind of functions like folders without you having to like physically move things to a
Okay.
folder. So I would tag it as podcast or the name of my kid's school or, any of those types of things. I also have a tag called waiting. That means I'm waiting for a response. So if I am like doing my emails and I'm like, hey, Michelle, I'm really excited to chat. Here's the ideas I have about our podcast episode. What do you think? Then I'm going to tag that as waiting. And then I have like a time on my calendar that's usually once a week that I go through all the things that are tagged waiting. And then I would follow up with the person if I hadn't heard from them. Obviously, if it's like more, you can do it more frequently than once a week, but just having like a rhythm around if you haven't heard from somebody, you can follow up. So I use that waiting tag and then I can just find that and know and be like, oh yeah, I never heard back from that person or that kind of thing. And so for my inbox, then really it's just things that I am needing to take action on, like pretty quickly as opposed to other things. If I'm like waiting for someone, then I just archive that, but have that waiting tag.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah, I'm still playing around with how my brain works and how it's organized and the best way and the use of time. So I'm still playing around with that. Maybe I'll do a podcast episode at some point. So
Yeah.
kind of close and kind of wrap up. Is there any one thing or anything that we haven't talked about that you're kind of thinking we should mention?
The only other thing I had was more of like a home thing where I've been working with a lot of clients where they're like, I just don't have the space to store this, or like, I don't know where to put this. So it ends up on the counter. And just remembering that you can use vertical space. So whether that be a behind the door kind of organizer, like I've seen some of them for like stuffed animals, obviously ones for shoes are pretty popular, like jewelry. I've even seen them for linen closets for like towels. So using like behind the door space, or if you're doing things on the wall, using hooks, like especially if you can't get people to put things on hangers, like using hooks. Or like wall mounted things. Like I use an inbox tray in my kitchen on the counter for mail and papers coming in, but you could have something on the wall that would be like 2 or 3 inbox baskets. And then you could be like, oh, this is for me. This is for my husband. This is, whatever you want it to be. So just remembering wall space and vertical space if you feel like your surfaces are getting really disorganized or that you really don't have a lot of storage and you're not really sure what to do. So that's just a little tip there.
That's great. And yeah, oftentimes we don't think of the vertical. You just think of like what we can see and the countertops. Yeah.
Yeah. And some people, depending on how your brain works, if you like things to be visible, like if it is out of sight, out of mind for some folks, especially those who have ADHD, sometimes it's like, no, I need to see it or I will forget it. Then having that visual reminder and having it like on the wall is helpful rather than it just getting kind of buried in piles that end up on, all available surfaces. So it helps you keep things front of mind too, rather than it falling through the cracks. Because we don't need more things to fall through the cracks, right?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to prevent.
Yeah.
Make it easy, make it the easiest way possible. So we're not dealing with a lot of our mental load that we talked about. We're not dealing with a lot of digital stuff that we talked about, or as we talked about, like physical clutter. So
Yeah.
I think that's such a good reminder to just keep things as neat as possible in your brain, on your computer, in your home. Like less is better. Toss out what you don't need.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so much fun. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah. And everyone enjoy spring and whatever refresh you decide to do. Hopefully, we gave you some fun ideas.
Yeah, whatever refresh. And as we said at the beginning, no pressure. Just take 1 or 2 things and maybe work on those. But
Yeah.
really, no pressure. And you can do spring and summer too.
Yeah. It's like instead of sending Christmas cards, like people will send them like end of January. Like it's fine.
Right.
There's no police. It's okay.
There's no rules. You can get to decide when you put that in your time.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Emily.
Yeah. Thank you.